The UK property market, I believe, is basically finished. In my opinion, by 2030, it's going to be near enough impossible to buy your own property if you want to buy a property to live in, or if you want to buy a buy-to-let to make a little bit of money on. I think it's going to be completely impossible. When you look at the stats of who is behind buying up Britain, the companies, the institutions that are putting billions and billions of pounds into residential property and how they're doing it, if you follow the money, it's mind-blowing, and it's also pretty scary. So in this video, I'm going to reveal everything. I might get in trouble for this, but here we go. The first company I want to talk about is Lloyds Living. This used to be known as Citra Living, and this is owned by Lloyds Bank. They currently own 7,500 rental properties, residential homes in Britain, and their goal by 2030 is to get 50,000. And of course, Lloyds Banking Group are making a ton of money through the banking system by taking our money and giving us a tiny little bit of interest, and that's a big chunk of the money that they use, and then using it to buy properties and push out residential landlords, struggling buy-to-let owners, and also first-time buyers. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I can see a very clear conflict of interest with Lloyds Banking Group. The fact that they take our money and have a strapline which is called Buy Your Side. Buy your side. They teach our kids in schools about financial literacy, and when you look at what they're teaching, they're telling people to put their money in lifetime ISAs. They're then using that money to buy houses to rent back to us. But worse than that, they have a mortgage company where they give out loans and mortgages for people to buy properties. But I think it's conflicted because, in my opinion, and now I might be wrong, but they don't want buy-to-let landlords. They want to take all the properties. So if people try and get a mortgage, they're going to say, sorry, declined. Why don't you rent instead? They are part of the World Economic Forum, whose mission by 2030 is that normal people will own nothing and be happy. Meanwhile, they'll own everything and be even happier. And they've got all these conflict of interest companies. And guess who their biggest investor is? Their biggest investor is BlackRock, an investment company who do the same thing, who are also putting billions and billions of pounds into UK residential property. Now, you might think, well, you know what? I don't like Lloyds Bank. I'm going to bank with Halifax or Bank of Scotland or Scottish Widows. But here's the thing. They're all owned by Lloyds Banking Group. You couldn't make it up. Now, I took my kids out of school because I didn't want the government to raise my children. And then people said, oh, but Samuel, you do realize that now they're teaching financial literacy finally. Yay. Yeah, but Lloyds Bank are a big part of the educators. And guess what? Lloyds Bank and the government are mates. In fact, in 2008, after the credit crunch, when the banks were really struggling, guess what happened? Lloyds Bank almost went bust, but they were bailed out. By who? Their mate. The government. The government literally invested into Lloyds Bank to keep it going. They bought 43% of the company to keep it afloat during the financial struggles. Now, as a property investor, I mean, this is very interesting because I want to know who my competitors are. And people like Lloyds Banking Group and all these big companies that are trying to dominate and have a monopoly over the market. But this is the scary thing. It doesn't just affect landlords. It doesn't just affect property investors. It affects everybody. Because if you're a tenant, who are you going to be renting from? Well, you're going to be renting from Lloyds Banking Group or BlackRock. And you might think, so what's the problem with that? Well, would you really want to rent from a huge monopoly institution that say things like, oh, sorry, machine says no. Oh, do you have your digital ID? You can't rent then. This is all about complete mass control. If I've got a tenant who can't pay their rent, I've got over 100 tenants myself, and I'm a very small player compared to these companies. But if one of my tenants says, I need to move job, oh, I'm going to be paying a couple of days late, or I've got this issue, I'll be able to actually speak to them or have a team or a management company that actually speaks to them. But what's going to happen is, you know when you've got big companies, like if you don't pay your EE phone bill, what happens? Cut off. When you've got institutions, when you're dealing with computer says no, you know, you go to the airport and you're dealing with an airline and you just 10 seconds late and they just go no, and you go, but the plane's there, and sorry, no, can't let you through. That's the type of control that's going to happen with our homes. Our shelter is going to be controlled by these giant monopoly machine psychopaths. Now, you might think I'm just taking a pop at Lloyds because Lloyds closed my bank down and they don't like me. Sent me quite a lot of nasty letters. But this is not just Lloyds. There's many big companies that are putting billions and billions of pounds into our tiny little island, Great Britain. And most of them are owned or backed financially by who? Surprise, surprise, BlackRock. And more on that later. Now, I'm not an economist, but I do put millions of pounds into the property market. So I like to know what's going on. And it's very interesting because if you watch the newspapers, if you listen to the BBC, or if you just type in UK property and you read what the media are saying, they make out that property's really bad, it's really scary, and landlords are leaving. That bit's true. But this is the thing. I am very confident that house prices are going to go through the roof over the next few years. I think that by 2030, house prices will be so expensive, like in London. There's only two people that own houses in London right now. It's people that bought houses years ago, or it's people that are really rich. You can't just move to London and just buy a house. It's too expensive. My prediction is that's going to happen all across the UK. And you just have to follow the money. And you have to look at what the super wealthy people are doing. So these super wealthy people, when they're buying houses, notice they're not selling houses. The small struggling landlords are ditching their portfolios. But the wealthy people, they're not selling. They're buying and they're building. Interestingly, when they build houses, they're not selling them. So if a company like Lloyds Bank, BlackRock, these institutions are building houses, you might think, oh, well, that's a really good thing. They're going to build houses and then bring more supply to the average person. Well, maybe from a rental perspective, possibly. But here's the thing. They're not buying and then selling and providing accommodation for people to get on the ladder. They're buying or building and holding and keeping for themselves and creating a monopoly. Now, it's interesting because I'm a wealthy investor myself, and sometimes people might come at me like how I'm going after them. They might say, Samuel, you're elite. You're buying houses and building houses. But here's the thing. When I buy houses, I might buy a house, do it up, sell it, make a profit. That's actually helping the economy. That's creating more houses. I think that's a good thing. And the money follows, and I make money, and it's fine. My prediction, the wealthy people who know what's going on, I mean, I'm not an economist, but I like to follow the money. The reason they're not selling is because they know that house prices are going to go through the roof. But then they're encouraging through the media, because believe it or not, these same companies also have a lot of influence and even ownership in the media, are telling people to sell. Isn't it scary? Isn't it hard? You just have to follow the money and use your brain. Another company that no one's talking about are Legal and General. Now, Legal and General are another company who are part of the World Economic Forum. They're massively investing billions of pounds into UK residential property. They also have a mortgage company. You see a pattern, right? In fact, they got done for mis-selling mortgages in the early 2000s. And now, on their website, they say that they build and sell and build and rent. Isn't that lovely? Because there's a shortage of houses, so they say they build and sell and build and rent. Proudly on their website. So they build and sell. That's good. That's really good. Building houses from scratch, providing more supply, and then selling them to first-time buyers. Isn't that wonderful? But here's the actual truth. They have only sold, according to my very deep research, one development ever. And that was in Brighton. They have done thousands and thousands and thousands of builds and sold one. How can you put on your website that you build and sell and build and rent when you've just done that once? Like, that is absolutely outrageous. Why are they not building and selling? Why would they not? If you buy some land and build, and you make a bit of profit and sell, why would you not sell? Well, it's because they want to hold. Because they want to have a monopoly, because they know that house prices are going to go up. Why would they sell and get a bit of cash? Oh, I made a bit of profit. Well, they don't want cash. Cash is trash. They want assets, not cash in the bank. Why would we not see what these wealthy companies are doing, what the institutions are doing, and just think, when they're teaching us, when Lloyds Bank are teaching us and our kids to save and invest our money, that's not what they're doing. They're aggressively buying houses, building and renting and holding and getting bailed out by the government. It really does make me a little bit angry. I mean, maybe I'm overreacting. Am I overreacting? And all of these guys, they're all backed by the government, get money from the government, have huge partnerships with the government. And then this is the thing, when they do bad things and it goes to court and it goes to the judges, which a lot of them do, if they're friends with the government, business partners with the government, do you not think that's going to carry a little bit of sway? When they're all part of the World Economic Forum, the forum which I was denied access into, by the way, even though I showed I had the money to join, but they didn't want me in. I mean, Legal and General have 6,000 properties and are aggressively growing. Aviva have 1,000. Lloyds Banking Group have 7,000. Their goal is 50,000. I mean, these companies, it's only a matter of time before they genuinely just own all the properties. And meanwhile, they're working with the government, and the government are creating taxes to push out struggling smaller landlords, the same taxes that don't apply for the corporations. I had a debate with a guy who's a socialist. I said, who do you prefer to be your landlord, me or Keir Starmer? And he said, Keir Starmer. Who would you rather have as your landlord, me or Keir Starmer?
Keir Starmer?
But bro, what? I mean, I don't understand. I think that the problem is they're getting away with it because the people are so brainwashed by the media. Aviva, you know what they did? They would just double your ground rent. Every few years, just double ground rent. They kept doing it. And people's ground rent got so high that they then couldn't sell their houses, but they also couldn't afford to pay the ground rent. And they ended up having to go to court, and they lost. And they're still the consultants for the government, being backed, working in partnership. It is absolute legalized criminalization, and no one's saying anything about it. It's not in the media. Why? Now, I'm not moaning, by the way. I'm just revealing the truth. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying, isn't it terrible and we should all panic? And no. I mean, for me, I'm very wealthy. This is opportunity. I mean, I think follow the money and do what they're doing. They hate that. They absolutely hate it. Here's how you rebel against the institutions. Get rich. That's what you do. Oh, you're buying properties. I mean, let me explain it this way, as if I'm talking to my kids right now. So this should really make sense. It costs these companies, Lloyds Banking Group, when they build houses, costs at least £200,000, maybe even £250,000 to build a small 2-bed house. You can speak to any construction firm and they'll confirm that. A couple £100,000 to build. But you can buy houses in certain parts of the north for 80 grand. They are building houses in estates, spending 200 grand, and then once they're built, they're worth 300 grand. Of course, they're not selling them, they're keeping them. But then you've got an estate just down the road where the same houses that are just a little bit older, you can buy for 80. There is a huge discrepancy between build cost and buy cost in certain areas. So what's going to happen? Obviously, these prices just haven't quite caught up the build cost. Cost of building materials, wood, timber, bricks and mortar has gone astronomically through the roof. House prices are going to catch up. The companies, the massive institutions that are buying and building these houses aren't selling. Why? Because they know they're going to go up. The obvious thing to do is to set up a company. Did you know you can set up a company today and then you can buy a house through that company tomorrow? And you get all the same tax write-offs as they do, because you're doing it through a company now. And the rich people create the rules. So all these worrying taxes that might come in, they're not going to apply to you if you set up and structure your companies the same way. And there's nothing stopping you. You can either be a victim and go, oh, it's going to be so hard. Oh, it is so hard. Or you can go, no. We're in the last buying cycle. It's going to be impossible, but it's not impossible now. And you can either complain or get rich. Now, I chose to get rich. And as a result of my wealth, I have freedom, I have time, and I think I'm a pretty good person. And I don't hoard. I don't try and keep a monopoly. I teach, I share, I show others. These guys know that the pound is going to crash. They know about inflation and economics and fractional reserve banking and quantitative easing. They understand. They learned the rules of the game and then play to win. Now, they might have inherited their money and they might have, fine, we're starting from scratch. No problem. But we don't want to be billionaires. We just want a few houses to have a little bit of income, be good landlords, look after our tenants, and to be able to be financially independent so we can provide a good life for our families. That's it. Now, if you're not already convinced that you need to get into property now, let me say this. BlackRock. They are one of the biggest investment companies in the world. They have 10 trillion pounds that they have got. Now, a lot of that money isn't theirs. They manage it because what they do, because they're smart, is they take other people's money and they invest it. But do you know what they're investing in right now? In the UK property market. They are investing billions and billions of pounds. They are one of the biggest players. So I guess my final advice would be, when you see people like Bill Gates, who's the largest landowner in the whole of America, when you see Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, investing heavily into property, he's invested over £500 million into property. When you see these big companies, BlackRock, faceless companies, names, they're all investing in property, you would be naive to think that this is not the last buying cycle. You can either make excuses as to why you can't do it, or you can do it, join them and get rich. And if you don't have the money, do what they do. Partner, raise the money. That's what all these companies do. How do you think they grow so massive? Using other people's money. In 2023, there was a survey done that 25% of people that were buying properties in London were coming from overseas. In fact, expensive London houses that are valued at £5 million or more, you know who's buying them? Over 50% of people that are buying those properties now are from overseas. They're not English people. Because most normal English people today just sit and listen to BBC News and complain. Don't let that be you. I believe you're watching this for a reason. If you want to know how to find properties that are affordable, 60, 70, 80 grand houses that you can buy with other people's money, and how to structure it, and how to buy it through a company so you get the same write-offs that these rich companies get tax-wise, then you can. And if you want to join me, I'm running a free online training explaining step by step how to do this now before it's too late. Don't complain in 5 years' time. Oh, it's hard. Yeah, now's the time. So I'll leave a link below. Get down to the free online training. Let me show you step by step. And then at least you know. If you look and you go, okay, this is exactly step by step what I need to do. Now, the power is in your hands. So knowledge is power. So I'll see you on the training. Click the link below. And I look forward to helping you create wealth.